Hi friends, today I am going to continue Azure real-time interview questions. This is continuation to my earlier sessions. Please go through them in case if you have not come across all those earlier sessions. Let us jump into without any delay. So the first question, I would like to recover my applications during the disaster recovery in few minutes. What is your solution? This is a commonly asked question to any developer or an architect. So assume that the setup is already done on one particular region. For some reason, that whole region is gone down, maybe due to the disaster. Then how will you recover from that? And your business is very critical and it cannot sustain with the long duration of downtime. So probably within minutes it need to be recovered. Then what will be your solution? So you have to be ready, and you have to be ready with the strategy, and then you have to implement that before the disaster occurs, right? So for that, assume that region 1 has the number of VMs, the number of different type of apps, also the backend DBs. So all those things need to be replicated in the other region, so that within few minutes after the disaster, you will be able to fail over to that particular region. This is what we are trying to show you in the picture. So by using Azure Site Recovery feature in Azure, you can replicate the complete systems. Whatever you have used in region 1 can be replicated into the region 2, so that it will be very fast, as all the images are replicated, but they are on offline, they are not online now. But whenever the disaster happens, you will switch over to region 2. But in that, there are some kind of things need to be taken care, such as static IPs, or you need to retain the IPs from the region 1 and then you need to redirect through that IPs to the region 2. So there is an option even to test that failover. So you can be ready with that test failover, and then whenever this occurs, you can easily switch over. So this is how you can perform your disaster recovery within few minutes. In case if you don't have replicas, you are just simply taking the backups. It will take plenty of time to restore from the data to VMs or to your database. That will really take hours of time. So this is expensive but very fast to get recovered from the disaster. But yeah, in case if your business can sustain for few hours, it doesn't matter for your business, then you can just simply take the backups of all those DBs, VMs and everything, like snapshots, and then you can restore one after one during the disaster. So that will take, like as I mentioned, few hours to replicate the whole thing from the backup copies. That's how you need to explain to the interviewer, like based on your business criticality, you can take a call whether you are going to replicate completely into the other region by using Azure Site Recovery, or you are going to just simply take the backups by using Azure Site Recovery, and then whenever the disaster happens, then you will come out of it by recreating all those virtual images, also the DBs from the backups. So let us go to the next one. I have session ID and I would like to configure the load balancer for the application. How would you do this? So there are two different features on the sessions, on the load balancer. One is sticky and the other one is non-sticky. So sticky is like, assume that your web application is created based on the session ID. So the session ID need to be passed and the session is caught somewhere in the cache, so that every time that particular request need to go to the same VM server or same web server. Okay, take the first picture. Now the client is requesting, or the customer is requesting for something. Now session is created and it goes to the web 1. Every time it should go to the same server, as we are maintaining a session here. If it goes to web 2 doesn't know what is that. So it will again freshly open that and gives the data required. So it doesn't work in that way. So it should be sticking to the same server. It should not send the to the different server when the request comes from the same user. That is like sticking to the same web server. Coming to the non-sticky, it can go to any server. We are not worried about that. Like first time it comes to the web 1 and second time you can send it to the web 2. So you can do anything, right? So how will you manage that particular one? In the load balancer, you have an option to set it up sticky or non-sticky. So let me show you how you can do that. So under my load balancer, I have already created one load balancer. Just simply create that and then go to the load balancing rules. In case if you have already configured all your VMs under the load balancer, you will be able to set it up your session. But I did not do all those stuff. Hence, these are all things are disabled. So if you have configured already, you will be able to enable these things. Under the session persistence, if you configure none, that means the request can go to any server. Like I have configured 3 VMs. The first time the request goes to VM1, second time the request goes to VM2, or third time it may goes anyway. That means the traffic is controlled by the load balancer. But in case if you set it up this property as a client IP, then that will stick to the same VM. For example, the first request is gone to the VM1, second time, third time, fourth time, every time that goes to the same VM, so that the sticky will be maintained. That's how you can enable your stickiness to the load balancer, so that you will be maintaining this sessions topic or concept. So the next one is, can you route the traffic based on the priority? Okay, assume that I have 3 servers and 2 are the failover servers, and the first one is a primary. Now when the primary server is down, I should be able to failover to based on the priority, like to the failover A, and if even that is down, then it should go to the failover B. So I should be able to set up the priority, like to which server I should reach when the first primary server is down. That's what, like you will be able to set it up under the traffic manager. So you can see here in the picture, I have a primary priority 1. Usually the traffic goes to that primary server. In case if the server is down, then as I set it up the priority to the failover A, that goes to the failover A. Then even if this server is down, then it goes to the failover B. So that's how the failover works based on the priorities that can be configured under the traffic manager, Azure Traffic Manager. So that should be your answer for that question. Let us go to the next one. What is geo-redundant load balancer? So in case if you have VMs configured for some XYZ reason, it could be for your websites or other apps, or maybe your DevOps, something you have configured. Now you have also geo-redundant to the other regions, other zones. So I have zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. I have multiple VMs on those. Now your geo-redundant load balancer can, based on the static IP, first it will hit the load balancer, then it will redirect the traffic between your zones. So in a region with availability zones, a standard load balancer front end can be zone redundant. Zone redundant means that all inbound and outbound flows are served by multiple availability zones in a region simultaneously using a single IP address. So the single IP address will be configured at the load balancer, and it can serve to any zone redundant. I'm sorry, here spelling mistake is there. It's a zone redundant, not zero redundant. Zone redundant. So a single front-end IP address can survive zone failure and can be used to reach all non-impacted backend pool members in respective of the zone. One or more availability zones can fail, and the data path survives as long as one zone in the region remains healthy. So that's how the geo-redundant load balancer works. So between these load balancers, it will check the health of that particular VM, the zone, and then it will be redirecting the traffic. At least one should be alive so that it can manage the traffic to that particular zone. So moving to the other one, what are the types of storage? This is very basic question. I think everyone must be knowing what are the types of storage. Azure blobs, Azure files, Azure queues, Azure tables, Azure disks. So each storage is used for different purposes. So Azure blobs, even it is used for the Azure Data Lake storage Gen 2 for storing the huge data like terabytes, petabytes, hexabytes of data into the blob storage. Azure Files is basically to load the huge sized files, and Azure Queues can be used to queuing the messages. And Azure Tables, if you want NoSQL type of database, still under the storage you have Azure Tables. Azure Disks can be used as a storage for your VMs, additional storage to the VMs. So addition to that, you also have a look on Azure NetApp Files, Azure File Sync. These are the various features of that. Azure Shared Image Library, Azure Backup. So just have a look for addressing the other type of questions. Anyway, I'll come up with more questions on those topics. So the next one is it possible to VNet to VNet pairing in same regions? So VNet to VNet pairing can be done in the same region, or it can also be done across the regions by using global VNet pairing. So basically VNet is a private cloud which isolates all the systems whatever you are using under the one particular VNet. You can call it as private cloud. So this private cloud is not accessible to outside the world, but there are different type of mechanisms to access that particular VNet. That could be point to site, site to site, express route. So by using those mechanisms, you will be able to establish the connection from your office or office network or any other network, right? So but if you want to connect from one VNet to the other VNet, that's where VNet pairing comes. So when you have VNet pairing, for example, you have configured one VNet in same region, second VNet also is configured in the same region, then you can be still connect those. I mean, you will be able to pair those VNets. At the same time, if they are configured in the two different regions, still you will be able to do that by using global VNet pairing. That's what the question. They just want to understand whether you know details of that VNet pairing. So in case if you want to know more details in the simplified manner, please go through my other video. I made one more video for VNet, site to site, point to site, even the hub spoke topology. So please go through that. You will just to understand what it is. So let us jump into the next question. Can you explain LRS, ZRS, GRS, GZRS? Or what are the data redundancy options of your data? The question can be twisted in any way. This is again related to your storage. So the storage can be redundant across your zones or geos. So let us just have a look. LRS is locally redundant storage. So when you store some data on your storage, it could be blob storage or file storage. When you do that, that particular data copy will be taken as a backup, you can call it as, but that will be redundant in the same local storage as a 3 different copies. You can see this picture that indicates like 3 different copies. So first copy is what you have written. The 2 other copies are for backup purposes. In case if because of some reason the first copy is failed, then it will recover from the 2 copies. You will not have any access to that, but internally Azure will manage that. So the SLA of this is 11 nines. That means it is huge, probably some minutes in a month. Protects your data against server rack and drive failures. For example, now I stored my data in one particular rack space. So if the due to maybe power failure or system failure, my data is gone, but still because of the redundant copies, the data is available in the other rack space, so that it can be retrieved or it can be protected. As I mentioned, that will be taken as 3 replicas. When it comes to the zone redundant storage, that is ZRS, instead of taking into the different racks, it will take into the 3 different zones. So here also there are 3 different copies, but they are across 3 zones. Each region will have minimum 3 zones. So the 3 zones will have different copies of the same data or same whatever the things you are storing, that will have the copy of the data in the other regions. So it will give you 12 lines SLA. It's huge. Protects against even zone failure. In case for zone 1 is failed, then zone 2 have the data and zone 3 also have your data, so that it can be retrieved. When it comes to the first option, locally redundant, it's under one zone, but there are multiple rack spaces in that particular zone. It is scattered across the rack spaces, whereas this is completely in the different zones. Coming to the third option, geo redundant storage, it is like one particular geo, one particular region has the data. It will take the locally 3 copies, and it will also asynchronously copies the same data as 3 copies into the other region, that is a secondary region. So you're not worried about like how it is happening, but you will be paying for that when you select GRS as an option. But the data is well protected by taking the copies into completely into the other region. So the SLS of this is 16 nines. It is probably yearly minutes kind of thing. Protects against a regional disaster. In case if a complete region got some disaster, due to that you can't recover the data in case if it is under one particular region into these 3 regions or in the LRS. But in this case, you will be able to retrieve the data from the secondary region. Here, this is, you can't read this data. This is only for the Microsoft, that Azure purpose. They will, whenever the data is, the primary copy of data is failed, then it will be retrieved from the secondary copy. But you can't read that data. But if you want to read the data from the secondary copies as well, then you need to go with the read access geo redundant storage. It will also give you 16 nines of the SLAs. Protects against regional disaster, 3 copies locally and 3 copies in another region. At the same time, you will be able to read that. The cost will be really high compared to the LRS or ZRS. Okay, that's all about your LRS, ZRS, GRS, LAG, ZRS. Let me just show you quick option like where you can select when you are while you're creating your blob storage, the storage account. Here you will be able to see LRS, GRS, read access geo redundant storage. So based on the selections you will make here, that all will get changed. So not everything will support everything. That's how it works. Okay. Again, if you select premium, you will have different options. Okay. Let me go through my next question. Differences between vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. Okay, coming to the just to simplify that, I have taken one example here. Scale up, vertical scaling. Assume that you have a bus. If you want to improve the capacity, increase the capacity of that bus, seating capacity of that bus, you can add one more like double decker, but you can't go with the triple decker or four. There is a limit, right? So up to some certain limit, you will be able to add more capacity to that same bus. But in case if you want to add more number of buses, that there is no limit. Like you will be able to add 10-20 buses also. There is no such kind of limit. So coming to the vertical scaling, similarly like the first option, you will be, if you can increase your RAM, CPU for any instance, storage, there is a limit, but that is a vertical scaling. Within the same mission, it will be keep on increasing the RAM, CPU, storage, and whatever other resources possible, all can be increased within that computer. But there is a certain limit, like maybe after some terabytes of data storage, it can't be, right? So vertical scaling is that like you will be just increasing or improving the performance of the same mission, but coming to the horizontal scaling, adding more and more instances. So vertical scaling is, for example, if you are using SQL Server, you can do only vertical scaling. You can't do the horizontal scaling. Whereas if you are using MongoDB or some other Cosmos DB type of NoSQL DBs, then horizontal scaling will work. Like you can scatter your data. Few of the indexes, for example, you have 20 records, 1 to 10 records. If you have 100 records, 1 to 10 records can be stored in one mission. Then the rest of the records can move to the second mission. So that scattering mechanism can be done by using the as part of the MongoDB or Cosmos DB, like NoSQL DBs. and the horizontal scaling will help such kind of technologies. So there are plenty of advantages with the horizontal scaling compared to vertical scaling. Let us go to the next one. Can I maintain multiple currencies for my different regional billing? So this is just to twist on the question, like whether you are maintaining your subscription or not. So usually it is not possible, because one particular subscription will work with only one currency. Assume that definitely many companies have their multiple offices across the geos. Now I have office in US, India, maybe somewhere in UK or in Europe. I can't maintain the same account with multiple currencies like Indian rupees, UK pounds, US dollars. I can't split it out. So you have to maintain only one currency. So only in that particular currency that invoice will be generated every month from the Azure. But in case if you have such kind of requirement, you will need to create different accounts altogether. You can't maintain a single account, especially for this type of billing purposes. Okay, let us jump into the next one. Differences between availability zone and availability sets are explain fault domains and update domains. So this is most commonly asked question in any interview, at least to understand like how far you know about the VMs concept. Nowadays, not only VMs, there are many other features which are coming with availability sets and availability zone. So this both pictures will give you complete idea about availability zone and availability sets. If you take the first picture, so assume that this is one rack, the second one is other rack, and the third one is third rack. So now you're configuring your VM under this, and if you enable availability set under your VM, then second VM will be created under the second rack space or third rack space. The reason for this is, for example, if the power outage or some system failure happened to the first rack, still your complete application is running on the other rack space. So it's like increasing or improving your high availability. Okay, now the same thing is called fault domain. So this is a fault domain 0, fault domain 1, and fault domain 2. Okay, that is about the availability sets, like you're configuring your availability set to some other rack space. So whenever the first rack space is down, then automatically it will fail over to the other rack space. That is part of the availability set. What if the complete this rack spaces are under one particular zone? What if the complete zone is down? What we can do? Then you can pick it up Azure regions. So under the one particular Azure region, there will be 3 availability zones. So if you can set it up availability zones, so first VM is under availability zone 1, then automatically the second VM will be configured either under the zone 2 or zone 3. Right? So in case if the complete zone is down, your system is still available under other zone, so that your high availability is improved compared to availability sets. So even due to some XYZ reason the complete zone is down, then still your systems are up and running. Okay, that's about the availability sets and zones. Coming to the fault domains and update domains, so as I mentioned already, this is a fault domain 1 and fault domain 2. The second one is update domains. These are the update domains. You can see UD0, UD1, UD2. So this is to maintain, for example, your OS updates or your software updates on your VM are completely under your control. So no one will touch that until you want something to change on that. But there are some maintenance from the maintenance activities from the Microsoft. So for that they will need some kind of upgrades, maybe for better performance and for the reasons, right? So they may need to upgrade those rack spaces. So when that is needed, they will follow the update domains. So for example, if there are updating in one particular sequence. Let me show you the next slide. Probably will understand. So this is how it works. Fault domain 0 and fault domain 1, that means like one rack space, the other rack space. So update domains, the one VM will be here, maybe some random VM here, even the numbers are given here, right? So only those update domains will be, that sequence will be followed to update those particular VMs as part of the Azure maintenance. But it is very rate based on their cycles. But even during that, you should not have any downtime. That is the reason you have to follow this. Internally they follow that. You don't do much on it. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching my videos.